If you're a fan of documentaries, we are so lucky to be living through a golden age with more docs being made and with higher production values than ever before. But with the amount of stuff being released on streaming services these days, it can be sometimes overwhelming to try and figure out what's worth watching and what's just a bad reality show with a pretty thumbnail.
Never go against the family.
Never go against the family.
Every once in a while though, I find something that does everything right, and for me, that's Last Chance U. But this is a filmmaking channel, so I'm not here just to tell you what to watch. We want to dive into it and figure out why it's so good so that we can take those lessons and apply them to our own projects. And that's what I'm going to do today, by breaking down exactly what Last Chance U does so well and how you can try and do the same things on your next shoot. At the very end, I'll talk about which seasons I thought were the best and why, so if you don't have the time to watch 5 full seasons and just want the best, you'll want to stick around for that. Hey guys, welcome back. And if you're new here, my name is Luke Forsyth, and on this channel, I teach the skills I've learned over 10 years of working as a documentary filmmaker and photographer. I'm gonna be honest, the first 20 times I saw the thumbnail for Last Chance U on the Netflix homepage, I wasn't interested. I'm not really a huge sports fan in general, and while I might watch a random game at a friend's house every so often, I'm not interested enough in any sport to really follow it. I guess I thought it would be more of a behind-the-scenes reality show, and even though the algorithm kept recommending it to me, I wouldn't give it a chance. Then, a few years ago, I got hired to film a baseball documentary for Showtime about the only sports team in the world to have home stadiums in 2 countries, meaning that they played games in both Mexico and the US. It's a really cool story about the border situation told through the lens of a game, but I didn't get that job because I knew much about baseball. I got hired because I knew how to work on the Mexican side of the border, which can be pretty dicey in some places, and because I spoke Spanish, and English obviously. I realized pretty quickly that filming a team on the road and also covering the fast action of sports was not easy, and so I started looking around for inspiration. That's when I found Last Chance U. If you've never heard of it, I'll give you a quick rundown. For the first 5 seasons, the show is all about football teams in the junior college sports system in the US, and then starting at season 6, it changes to basketball. Not being American, I didn't even know what a junior college was, but they're basically community colleges where people in smaller towns who don't have a lot of money to spend on a big expensive university can go to get an education. And weirdly, some of those tiny colleges also have massive sports programs with multi-million-dollar facilities in the middle of nowhere that basically exist to generate money for these schools and feed athletes into the larger Division I sports programs. But it's about so much more than just sports. It's really about race and inequality in America and how sports can be the only chance some of these students have to improve their situations in life. I'm not going to do it justice here, but all I can say is that it's so well done that you should definitely give it a watch. But why? With so many documentaries out there, what makes this one so powerful? Well, to start with, the cinematography. It looks amazing. It might not be a surprise that coming from a DP background, I'm attracted to things that are well shot, but this show is seriously well done at a level that I haven't seen in many documentary shows before. The word cinematic gets thrown around on the internet a lot to the point where it can sometimes be applied to anything shot in 24 frames a second, but this show is actually cinematic. From the B-roll to the incredible portrait shots to the style of the sit-down interviews, this show looks like it was heavily influenced by Hollywood. But that's because it was. The current DP of this show, Terry Zumwalt, I think that's how you say his name, didn't start out making documentaries. If you look through his IMDb page, he has credits going all the way back to 2008 in the electrical department of feature films. If that doesn't mean anything to you, the electrical department works in tandem with the camera department, both of which fall under the authority of the director of photography, or the DP for short. The camera department handles the camera, obviously, and the electrical department handles the lights. In Hollywood, the lighting is probably more important to the look of a film than the camera and lenses are, and more documentaries are starting to embrace some of those techniques to up their production value. Coming up through the electrical department means that Terry had a deep understanding of how to use light to achieve specific looks well before he was asked to be the DP of Last Chance U. And honestly, you can tell. The way he sets up interviews, for example, is so simple that you don't always know if it's just natural light or not, but they really bring out the character and the role of the person talking, which is the whole point. The lighting serves the story and makes it better, and that's the sign of a good DP. Last Chance U also has a unique style to it, which is one of the main reasons I think of it as cinematography rather than videography. I read an interview with the original series DP, Gabriel Paté, which I'll link to in the description as well, where he says that most of the time he's shooting on a single wide-angle prime lens, which I think was an 18mm Cooke. Most people would think that a long zoom lens would be the logical choice for sports, but choosing an 18mm meant that the camera team had to get super close to the players, and it made the whole thing feel really intimate and immersive. Obviously they used some longer lenses when covering the games themselves, but everything else, including the sideline coverage, is shot with the wide. And I don't know if when Terry took over the show in later seasons he kept the exact same lens, but the style of getting really close to the characters stayed the same throughout. throughout, and I think it gives the show a unique feel that you don't get normally from sports docs. The point isn't that you need to spend thousands of dollars on a Cooke Panchro lens to make your doc look good, or that you need to shoot on wide lenses and nothing else. It's that you should think about your style ahead of time and create an intentional look for your show, rather than just shooting everything that you see with no vision. The Last Chance U team decided that they were going to stick to this one lens for the majority of their filming, and that's given the show a look all of its own. I happen to think it's one of, if not the best looking doc series on TV right now, but if you like something else even more, let me know in the comments and I'll break that down. The next thing that makes this show the current gold standard for doc TV, in my opinion, has nothing to do with gear or camera technique and everything to do with storytelling. With the sports documentary, I think it could have been really easy to spend the entire time fixating on the games and the winning or losing, but what really makes Last Chance U so good, in my opinion, is while it does follow the team as a whole, it also goes much deeper than that. The character development in this show is some of the best I've ever seen, and you seriously feel like you're getting to know some of these kids and you really care what happens to them. This is maybe the hardest thing to do in documentary filmmaking, and to do it well, you need the complete trust and cooperation of your characters, but also a ton of empathy. Remember that they're using an 18mm lens most of the time, and so they need to be literally right beside these people as they go through these difficult moments. They're not across the room or tucked into a corner, they're right there beside them. This isn't an easy thing to do, and if you haven't already, try filming strangers from 2 feet away and see how awkward it gets. And they don't just film the games, they're in the dorm rooms, they're in the study halls, their parents' houses. They spend a ton of time with these kids, and it shows. This is a great lesson when it comes to developing your own characters. You can't just film a nice interview and then some slow-mo B-roll and layer it over top and think that you've got a great story. The best docs go deep into the lives of their characters, and because of it, we get a full picture of who they are. The deeper we go, the more they develop from a random stranger we're seeing on a screen to a person who we're cheering for and feel bad for when things don't work out. Finding a good character for a story is only the starting point. You need to spend the time with them like Last Chance U does, so we feel like we actually know them. Sticking on the topic of story for my last point, it can be easy to think that you need to start with some huge dramatic subject. I used to think that the only projects worth doing took place in rural Pakistan or Papua New Guinea, and that everything smaller than that was a waste of time. Luckily, I know better now, but it's worth remembering that even small stories can have a big impact if they speak to a larger issue. And this is what makes Last Chance U so thought-provoking as well as beautiful. Let's be honest, junior college football in rural Mississippi isn't the most dramatic thing in the world, and you're probably not going to see it on the front page of the New York Times on a normal day. But the show isn't really about football. It's about the lives of the players, the economic realities they face, and their struggles to break out of poverty. Race and inequality has probably been one of the prominent issues in America for the last few years, apart from COVID, and there have been a ton of projects that try and tackle it as a theme. But if I'm being honest, I didn't want to watch most of them. Who would have thought that a show about junior college sports would have been better than all the news outlets at showing the challenges facing poor communities in the United States? But in my opinion, that's the truth. The show takes a complex issue and turns it into a highly personal and intimate story, and through the experience of the characters, we learn something about a world that isn't our own. That's part of what makes a good documentary great. And if you can find a story, even a really, really small story, that actually speaks to something much bigger, you'll have a winner. So don't fall into the trap of thinking you need to get on a plane to find good stories, because if this show was shot in Scuba, Mississippi, which is like population 730, you can find something important in your backyard, no matter where you live. I've watched every single episode of the show and loved them, but I think my favorite seasons were 1 and 6 so far. Only the real heart of this cause I'm ISO. I think season 1 is just so new and original, and the character development is done in such a refreshing way that it's the best starting point. The show establishes its cinematic style right away, and it sticks to it all the way through the seasons to come. I also love the characters on this first team, which isn't to say that they aren't great in later episodes, but something about this group really made me care. And season 6, which I guess is technically season 2 of a spin-off show, is when it switches from football to basketball. The change in sports creates new dynamics, which are fun, but the main reason I like this season so much is because of the cinematography. It's like the refining of everything that came before, and it looks so, so good. The light, the mood, the minimal interview setups, the gimbal work, it's just beautiful. Start with either of these 2 seasons, and I think you'll see why it's one of the best documentaries out there. I could go on and on raving about why I love this show, but of all those reasons, it's cinematography, the amazing character development, and the fact that this seemingly small world reveals so much about a big issue that are the 3 biggest reasons I think this is the best documentary series out there right now. Even if you don't like sports, if you like documentaries, do yourself a favor and check it out. It's given me so many ideas for my own future projects, and it might do the same for you. And if you have seen it, let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if that was interesting or helpful, maybe think about subscribing. It helps me out a lot. And if you liked that video, check out this other breakdown I made analyzing the filmmaking style of one of the world's most famous YouTubers, Casey Neistat. See ya.
It's me and Dill. So, hey, we in the stool, we working on hits, we staying until yeah. Look with the bros, it's been a little while since last time we chilled. Hey, send us a beat, you know we on go, we know we gon' kill. Hey, we in the back, season the chicken to throw on the grill.